My mom blackmailed me on my wedding day, but I turned the tables. So, you think your wedding day is all about love, joy, and maybe a little stress over the seating chart, right? Well, mine was quickly turning into a full-blown hostage negotiation. And the hostage? My entire future. The kidnapper? My own mother. Her ransom demand? My complete and utter destruction. The air in the room should have been thick with roses and excitement, not the nasty smell of betrayal. My wedding dress, this beautiful cloud of ivory and lace, hung there looking perfect, a symbol of everything I thought was good and true. But just hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, my mother, the woman who raised me, decided that was the perfect moment to drop a bombshell that just shattered my world. Blackmail. On my wedding day. She threatened to expose something, to ruin everything, if I actually dared to marry the man I loved. She really thought she had me backed into a corner, that I'd just crumble and give up my happiness for whatever twisted reason she had. Pause. But she had no idea I had a trick up my sleeve. She didn't know that her big plan to destroy my wedding day would actually flip her own perfectly crafted world upside down. This isn't just a story about wedding day drama. It's about the moment I realized that sometimes the people closest to you are capable of the deepest betrayals, and how finding your own strength can honestly change everything. The months before the wedding were a total whirlwind. You know how it is. Mark, my fiancé, well, my husband now, was everything I'd ever dreamed of. He was kind, funny, so supportive, and he loved me in a way that made me feel like I could finally, truly be myself. We spent so many evenings going over all the little details, the venue, this gorgeous old manor house with sprawling gardens, the guest list, a carefully chosen group of people we genuinely wanted there with us, the vows we were writing, pouring our hearts into every single word. It was all supposed to be perfect. Now, my relationship with my mother, Linda, had always been, well, complicated. On the surface, she was the doting mom. She'd throw me these elaborate birthday parties when I was a kid, always made sure I had the right clothes, the right friends. But underneath that shiny surface of motherly perfection, there was always this undercurrent of control. My choices were subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, steered by her. My achievements were hers to brag about. My mistakes, no matter how small, were huge disappointments, usually followed by long lectures on how I'd made her look bad. Mark saw it, of course. He was really gentle about it, never outright criticizing her, but he'd often hold my hand a little tighter after a phone call with her, or suggest a quiet night in when he could tell I was drained from one of her visits. She, on the other hand, had been pretty lukewarm about Mark from day one. He wasn't from the right family, didn't have the right connections she'd pictured for me. She never said it directly, but her passive aggression was a true art form. A pause that was just a bit too long after he shared good news, a backhanded compliment about his job, a constant, subtle undermining of our relationship. As the wedding planning got going, her interference ramped up, always disguised as helpful suggestions. She had opinions on everything, from the color of the napkins to the flavor of the cake, and every suggestion was delivered like it was a royal command. I tried to be patient, to pick my battles. This was our wedding, Mark's and mine, but I also really wanted to avoid an all-out war. I'd read articles online, seen friends go through it. Wedding planning often brings out the worst in family dynamics. I even vaguely remembered a story from early 2025 about parents threatening to cancel weddings over business stuff or guest lists. At the time, I remember thinking how awful that must be, never imagining I'd be in a similar, or even worse, situation. We had a major fight about the guest list. Mom wanted to invite a ton of her own friends and distant relatives, people I barely knew, people who, honestly, had a history of causing drama. Mark and I wanted a smaller, more intimate wedding. It became a real sore spot, a constant source of tension. She'd say things like, well, if you don't want to invite the Millers, I just don't know what they'll think, talking about some old family friends of hers who were, apparently, super important for her social status. It felt less like she wanted to celebrate our marriage and more like she wanted to keep up appearances. I remember one argument where she actually said, "You're making this very difficult, you know. This wedding reflects on all of us." Us, by which she clearly meant her. Despite all this tension, I pushed forward, focusing on the joy Mark and I shared, on the future we were building. I kept telling myself she'd come around. I told myself that on the day, seeing me happy, seeing us surrounded by love, her heart would soften. Pause, how wrong I was. The shadow looming wasn't just wedding stress, it was something much darker, much more calculated. And it was about to completely swallow my perfect day. She wasn't just stressed, she was plotting. And her weapon of choice was a secret she thought would bring me to my knees. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with butterflies, the good kind. Sunlight was streaming through the window of the bridal suite. My bridesmaids were buzzing around, all happy and chaotic, filling the room with energy. Hair and makeup artists were setting up. Champagne was being poured. It felt real, finally. All the planning, all the stress, it was all leading to this day. Then, Mom walked in. She wasn't smiling. Her face was like a mask of cold composure, and there was this glint in her eye that sent a shiver right down my spine. The room got a little quieter. She asked to speak to me alone. Her voice really clipped. My maid of honor, Sarah, gave me a worried look, but I nodded, trying to reassure her, and myself, that it was probably just some last-minute mom fussing. She closed the door, and the temperature in the room just dropped. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low and kind of menacing. "Mom, what is it? Is everything okay?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. She didn't answer right away, just looked at me, this strange, almost triumphant look on her face. Then she said the words that literally stopped my heart. "You can't marry Mark." I just stared at her, speechless. What? What are you talking about?" "Mom, this isn't funny." "I'm not joking," she replied, her voice like ice. "You are not going through with this wedding. If you do, I will tell everyone. I will tell Mark. I will tell everyone your dirty little secret." My blood ran cold. Secret? What secret are you talking about? My mind was racing. What on earth could she mean? Was this about some stupid thing I did as a teenager? Something I'd long forgotten? She smirked. "Oh, I think you know. That little indiscretion from your university days. The one you thought no one knew about. The one that would paint you as quite the, well, let's just say it wouldn't look good for the blushing bride, would it? Or for Mark's precious reputation. Or ours, for that matter." The air just rushed out of my lungs. There was something. A mistake I'd made years ago. Something I was so ashamed of. Something I had confided in her about during a moment when I was feeling vulnerable, thinking she was a safe person to tell. It wasn't illegal, nothing super scandalous in the grand scheme of things, but it was deeply personal, deeply embarrassing, and something that, if twisted in a certain way, could definitely cause a lot of pain and humiliation, especially on a day like this. It involved a brief, regrettable relationship and some really poor choices I'd made when I was young and dumb. She knew all the details I'd shared, and I could see in her eyes she was ready to use them, embellish them, and broadcast them to everyone. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered, my voice trembling. My beautiful wedding morning was turning into an absolute nightmare. "Because Mark is not right for you," she stated, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "This family he comes from, his prospects, they're not what we envisioned. I'm doing this for your own good. You'll thank me later." Her own good. The classic line of a manipulator. I remembered reading about emotional blackmail tactics, how they often frame their demands as being in the victim's best interest. "And what if I don't call it off?" I asked, though my throat was so tight I could barely get the words out. "Then, during the reception, perhaps when it's time for toasts, I'll make an announcement. Or maybe I'll just have a quiet word with Mark's parents. Or Mark himself. There are many ways for the truth to come out." She smiled, this chilling, predatory smile. "You have until you walk down that aisle to make your decision. Cancel the wedding, tell everyone you've had a change of heart, and your secret stays safe. Marry him, and I promise you, I will burn it all down." The stakes were brutally clear. My wedding, my relationship with Mark, my reputation, my family standing, which she clearly valued way more than my happiness, all hanging by a thread. She was threatening to turn my happiest day into my most public humiliation. It wasn't just about Mark not being right. This was about control, pure and simple. This felt like some of those extreme cases I'd read about, like that mother back in April 2025 who demanded her daughter cancel the wedding immediately, quit her job, and move back home, all because of a guest list dispute. The level of control was suffocating. She was giving me an ultimatum, this cruel choice between my future and my past. And she was banking on me being too scared, too ashamed to fight back. The door closed behind her, and I was just left there, stunned into silence. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror, a bride-to-be who moments ago was giddy with excitement, now looking like a ghost. The bright colors of the room seemed to fade. The happy chatter from outside the door sounded miles away. It felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated panic. How could she do this? My own mother? The secret she was threatening to reveal. It was bad. Not criminal, but so humiliating. It was a foolish, youthful mistake, a moment of serious immaturity that I had regretted for years. I had told her, believing in a mother's unconditional love and discretion. Now, that trust was being used as a weapon. She knew exactly how much shame I still carried from that time in my life, and she was using it with cold, surgical precision. Tears welled up, hot and fast. I wanted to scream, to break something, to just rewind time and untell her my deepest regret. My carefully planned wedding day, my dreams of a perfect start to my marriage, were all crumbling. What would Mark think? Would he still love me if this came out? Would his family understand? Or would they see me as tainted, dishonest? My bridesmaids, sensing something was terribly wrong, started knocking gently. Are you okay in there? Can we come in? I couldn't face them. Not yet. I needed to think. I sank onto the chaise lounge, my head in my hands. The weight of her ultimatum was crushing. Cancel the wedding. The words just echoed in my mind. All those guests, so many of whom had traveled so far. All that planning, all that money. And Mark, how could I do that to Mark? Tell him I'd had a change of heart? Lie to the man I loved, the man who deserved nothing but honesty from me? The alternative was public shaming, my past dragged out for everyone to see, all orchestrated by my own mother. I thought about what I'd read about emotional blackmail. It often involves making you feel fear, obligation, and guilt, the FOG, as some experts call it. And I was deep in it. Fear of exposure, obligation to protect my family's reputation, or rather, her idea of it, and guilt over my past mistake. She had me right where she wanted me. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. I knew I had to tell Mark. This wasn't just my secret anymore. It was a threat to our marriage, our future. Keeping him in the dark was unthinkable. I texted him, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely type. Need to see you. Urgent. Bridal suite. Alone. When he arrived, his usually smiling face was creased with concern. The moment he saw me, his expression shifted to alarm. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The story just tumbled out, a torrent of tears, fear, and shame. I told him everything. What my mother had threatened, the secret she was holding over me, the impossible choice she had given me. He listened, his face growing grimmer with every word. He didn't interrupt. He just held my hands, his grip a lifeline in the storm she had created. When I finally finished, breathless and sobbing, there was a long silence. I braced myself for his reaction. Disgust? Disappointment? A decision to just walk away? Instead, he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight. What? He finally said, his voice low and absolutely furious. She's threatening you? With that? On our wedding day? He wasn't angry at me or my past. He was furious at her. That happened years ago, before you even knew me. It doesn't change a single thing about how I feel about you. It doesn't change who you are now. His unwavering support was like a soothing balm to my raw nerves. But the problem was still there. What do we do, Mark? I whispered. If I marry you, She'll tell everyone. Our wedding will be ruined. No, he said firmly, pulling back to look me right in the eyes. She will not ruin our wedding. We are not canceling. We are not letting her win. His conviction was strong, but I was still terrified. But how? She'll do it. You don't know her like I do. Maybe, he said, but she doesn't know us. We sat there, the joy of the morning completely replaced by this grim determination. Mark was right. We couldn't let her win. This wasn't just about a past mistake anymore. This was about standing up to a bully, even if that bully was my own mother. This was about our right to happiness, our right to make our own decisions as adults. Those stories I'd read about others facing parental ultimatums suddenly felt so real. Victims had to stand their ground. But how? How do you fight a fire someone else is absolutely determined to start? And then, through that fog of despair, a tiny spark ignited. A memory. A piece of information I had. Something I knew about her. Something she would be far more desperate to keep hidden than I was about my old, stupid mistake. Pause. An ace up my sleeve. It hit me with the force of a punch, clearing away some of the panic and replacing it with this cold, sharp clarity. My mother, with her obsession with control and appearances, had her own secrets. And one of them was big, way bigger than mine, potentially devastating to that perfect image she worked so hard to maintain. Years ago, I'd accidentally stumbled upon some documents. Financial statements, actually. At the time, I didn't fully get what they meant. I was younger, more trusting. But the memory had stuck with me, this lingering uneasy feeling. My mother handled the family finances, including managing a small trust fund left by my grandmother. My father, a kind but pretty passive guy, trusted her completely. These documents, though, hinted at, well, irregularities. Discrepancies that suggested funds weren't exactly where they were supposed to be. Funds that were meant for both my future and for certain charities my grandmother had cared a lot about. At the time, I naively asked her about it, and she just brushed it off with some plausible-sounding explanation about investments and moving money around. But a seed of doubt had been planted. Over the years, other little things had added to that doubt. Her increasingly lavish personal spending that seemed way out of proportion to their known income, her secrecy around anything financial, her insistence on keeping sole control. Could this be it? Could this be my leverage? The thought was terrifying. Accusing your own mother of something so serious, it felt awful. But what she was doing to me, threatening to blow up my life on my wedding day, wasn't that awful too. I looked at Mark, a new light in my eyes. Mark, I said slowly, I think I might have something. Something that could stop her. I explained what I knew, the documents I'd seen, the suspicions I'd had for years. It was a long shot, based on old memories and things I'd noticed. I didn't have concrete proof in my hands right that second, but I knew where she kept her important papers, and I knew she valued her reputation, her image as a pillar of the community, above almost anything else. This is serious, like, really serious, Mark said, his brow furrowed. Are you sure? I'm sure about what I saw, I replied. And I'm sure she wouldn't want it exposed, especially not to Dad, or to the people who were supposed to benefit from that trust. A plan started to form, desperate and risky. It wasn't about destroying her. It was about protecting myself, about neutralizing her threat. It was about setting a boundary so firm she'd have no choice but to back off. Mental health experts often say that when you're dealing with emotional blackmail, you need to set clear boundaries and have consequences if those boundaries are crossed. My mother had crossed every imaginable line. Now, it was time for the consequence. The next hour was a blur of frantic, whispered activity. Mark was my rock, so calm and decisive. While I was a complete mess of nerves, he helped me focus. The ace wasn't just about the financial stuff. It was also about a series of carefully saved emails and letters. My mother, in her moments of anger or when she was trying to control someone, had a habit of writing things down, things that painted a very different picture of her than the one she showed the world. Things that showed a pattern of manipulation, not just towards me, but towards others in the family too. I knew where she kept her important files, a locked drawer in her study at home. She thought it was secure. The challenge was getting to them. Our house wasn't far from the venue. My father was already at the venue, greeting early guests. My mother was here, with me, a ticking time bomb. "Sarah," I said, finally letting my maid of honor into the bridal suite. Her face was a mixture of relief and extreme worry when she saw me still in my dressing gown, my face tear-streaked but now set with this strange resolve. I didn't have time to explain everything, just the absolute basics. "I need the biggest favor of your life. I need you to get something for me from my parents' house. From my mom's study." I described the drawer, the likely spot where she kept a spare key hidden, a habit of hers I knew from when I was a kid. Sarah, bless her loyal heart, didn't question it. She saw the desperation in my eyes, how serious the situation was. She just nodded, took the car keys Mark pressed into her hand, and slipped out. While Sarah was on her mission, Mark and I strategized. The plan wasn't to make a public scene, not like my mother wanted to do to me. My goal wasn't to humiliate her in the same way she planned to humiliate me. It was to confront her privately, show her that I knew, and make it crystal clear that if she went ahead with her threat, I'd be forced to go ahead with mine. Mutually assured destruction, maybe, but with the key difference that I only planned to use my weapon in defense, not as an attack. I felt sick to my stomach. This was not how I pictured my wedding day. There was no joy in this, only a grim necessity. I was about to confront my mother, not just as her daughter, but as an adversary. I had to be willing to accept the penalty, like experts advise. If she called my bluff, I had to be ready to follow through, or her blackmail would keep controlling my life. When Sarah returned, breathless, an hour later, she pressed a slim folder into my hand. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Inside were copies of the financial statements I remembered, along with a few of those revealing letters. It was enough. It was more than enough. My hands were shaking as I put the folder into my bridal bag, tucking it away securely. The makeup artist was trying to get my attention, saying we were running incredibly late. I took a deep breath. It was time. Time to get ready, time to walk down that aisle, and time to face my mother, not as a victim, but as someone who was finally, irrevocably, drawing a line in the sand. Getting ready felt like an out-of-body experience. The makeup artist tooted about my tear-stained face but skillfully worked her magic. My bridesmaids, though clearly worried and confused by the earlier drama and Sarah's secret mission, tried to create an atmosphere of forced cheerfulness. I played along, smiling when I was supposed to, nodding when they asked me questions about my hair or my jewelry. But inside, I was just this coiled spring of anxiety and resolve. Every rustle of my wedding dress, every glimpse of myself in the mirror, was a reminder of what was at stake. This beautiful, perfect day, the one I had dreamed of for so long, was teetering on the edge of disaster, all because of my mother's cruel game. But now, there was a flicker of something else too, a steely determination I didn't even know I had. I wasn't just a bride anymore. I was a soldier getting ready for battle. Mark found a moment to slip into the room, his eyes finding mine. He didn't say much, just squeezed my hand and gave me a look that said everything: love, support, and that we were in this together. His unwavering presence was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. As I walked towards the ceremony spot in the manor gardens, the familiar sounds of the wedding march began to play. Guests were seated, all smiling. My father stood waiting to walk me down the aisle, his face beaming with pride, completely unaware of the emotional war raging just beneath the surface. He looked so happy, so innocent of all the turmoil, and a pang of guilt hit me. My actions, my confrontation with Mom, could affect him too. But what choice did I have? Let her destroy my happiness, my marriage, based on a lie and her need for control? Seeing Mark at the altar, his eyes locked on mine, so full of love and reassurance, just solidified my resolve. This was right. He was right. Our love was worth fighting for. The ceremony itself passed in this dreamlike haze. I said my vows, my voice surprisingly steady, meaning every single word with all my heart. Mark's vows were beautiful, a testament to his love and commitment. And for those few precious minutes, I almost forgot about the storm that was about to break. But the moment we were pronounced husband and wife, the moment the cheers went up, reality came crashing back. The reception was next, and my mother was somewhere in that crowd, waiting for her chance. I could feel her eyes on me, even when I wasn't looking right at her. It was cold, expectant. Moving to the reception hall was a whirlwind of congratulations and well-wishes. People were laughing, champagne was flowing. It all looked so normal, so joyful. But under the surface, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, at least for me and Mark. We exchanged nervous glances. The folder, my ace, was safely with Sarah, who had strict instructions. The plan was simple, or as simple as something like this could be. I wouldn't wait for her to make her move during a public toast. I couldn't stand the thought of that kind of spectacle. I would confront her beforehand, during a quieter moment, when guests were mingling. I needed to do it soon, before she had the chance to corner Mark or his parents. It was about being proactive, about seizing control of the story she was so determined to write. I spotted her near the gift table, talking to some distant relatives, a polite, fake smile plastered on her face. She looked every bit the proud mother of the bride. The hypocrisy was sickening. Taking a deep breath, I excused myself from a conversation with Mark's aunt and started walking towards her. This was it. The calm was over. The storm was here. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs as I walked towards her. Each step felt heavy, deliberate. The happy sounds of the reception just faded into this dull roar in my ears. She saw me coming, and her polite smile tightened. I saw a flicker of something calculating in her eyes. She excused herself from her conversation and turned to face me, her posture rigid. "Having a good time, dear?" she asked, her voice dripping with this sugary sweetness that just made my skin crawl. It was the voice she always used right before saying something particularly nasty. "We need to talk, Mother," I said, keeping my voice low but firm, just like we'd planned. Privately. Now. A slight frown creased her forehead. Maybe she hadn't expected me to start the confrontation. Maybe she was planning her big move for a more public, more damaging moment. "Can it wait?" she asked, a hint of impatience in her voice. "I'm rather busy with our guests." "No," I said, my gaze not flinching. "It can't." I led her to a small, empty alcove just off the main reception area, a little nook that gave us some privacy. The muffled sounds of music and laughter were a weird backdrop to the showdown that was about to happen. Once we were alone, her whole demeanor shifted. The fake niceties vanished, replaced by that cold, hard expression I'd seen in the bridal suite earlier. So she began, crossing her arms. "Have you come to your senses? Are you going to call this charade off before it's too late?" I couldn't believe her nerve. Even now, after the vows, after Mark and I were legally married, she still thought she could bully me into backing down. "No, Mother," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm not calling anything off. Mark and I are married, and you are not going to ruin this day for us." A humorless laugh escaped her. "Oh, aren't I? You think I won't go through with it? You think I won't tell everyone exactly what kind of person you really are? The person I was a long time ago when I made a mistake?" I shot back. "A mistake I confided in you about? Trusting you?" "Yes, I think you would tell them. I think you're cruel enough to do that." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't you take that tone with me, young lady. And don't you threaten me," I retorted, my own anger flaring up, but I quickly pushed it down. I needed to stay calm, stay in control. Because if you say one word about my past to anyone here, not to Mark, not to his parents, not to a single guest, if you try to humiliate me or undermine my marriage in any way, then I will be forced to talk about your secrets." She blinked, a flicker of uncertainty finally showing in her eyes. "My secrets? What on earth are you babbling about?" "I have no secrets." This was the moment. I reached into the small bridal bag I was carrying. Sarah had discreetly passed it to me just minutes before. I pulled out the folder. Her eyes followed my movement, a dawning unease spreading across her face. I didn't open it right away. I just held it. Are you sure about that, Mother? Because I seem to recall some rather interesting discrepancies in grandmother's trust fund. And some letters. Letters that paint a very different picture of the concerned, loving matriarch you pretend to be. The color drained from her face. Her composure, for the first time that day, visibly cracked. She stared at the folder like it was a venomous snake. How did you get those? She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. That doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that I have them. And I know what they mean. I know what you've been doing. And I think Dad would be very interested to see them. Not to mention the other beneficiaries of that trust, and perhaps even some of your very important friends. Her eyes darted around the alcove, as if she was looking for an escape route. The hunter had become the hunted. The power dynamic had shifted completely and irreversibly. You wouldn't, she breathed, a mix of fear and disbelief in her voice. You're my daughter. And you're my mother, I replied, my voice laced with a sadness that surprised even me. And yet, you were prepared to destroy my wedding day, my happiness, to satisfy your own need for control and to cover up your discomfort with my choice of husband. You were going to blackmail me. So yes, I think I would. To protect myself. To protect my marriage. To protect my future from your manipulations. I saw the fight just go out of her. Her shoulders slumped. The arrogant certainty was gone, replaced by this dawning horror. Not horror at what she had done to me, but horror at the thought of her own secrets getting out. Her carefully constructed world, her reputation, her financial secrets, they were all at risk. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice hoarse. I want you to leave, I said quietly but firmly. I want you to walk out of this reception now. Make an excuse. You're feeling unwell. You have an urgent matter to attend to. I don't care what it is. But you will not stay. You will not say another word to anyone here about me or my past. And you will never, ever try to blackmail or manipulate me again. If you do, this folder, and everything in it, becomes public knowledge. Are we clear? She stared at me, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, a slow nod. Defeated. And one more thing, I added, the words coming to me suddenly, a necessary boundary for the future. You will apologize to Mark. Not now, but soon. A genuine apology for the disrespect you've shown him and our relationship. This was non-negotiable. It was about respect. It was about her acknowledging the pain she'd tried to inflict. She didn't respond to that last part, just gave another jerky nod. She looked smaller, suddenly. Stripped of her power, she just seemed diminished. Good, I said. I didn't feel triumph. Just a profound weariness and a deep, aching sadness for what our relationship had become. Now go. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the alcove. I watched her go, then leaned against the wall, my legs suddenly shaky. I had done it. I had faced her down. I had turned the tables. Moments later, Mark found me. He took one look at my face and knew. Is it done? He asked softly. I nodded. A wave of exhaustion just washing over me. She's leaving. He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself sag against him, the adrenaline finally fading away. You were incredible, he whispered. Incredibly brave. We walked back into the reception, hand in hand. It was so surreal. The music was still playing. People were still laughing and dancing, completely oblivious to the silent, vicious battle that had just taken place. A few people asked where my mother was, and I vaguely murmured something about her not feeling well and having to leave suddenly. No one questioned it too much. They were too caught up in the celebration. The rest of the wedding reception passed in this strange kind of daze. Part of me was relieved, lighter than I'd felt in days. Another part was still reeling from the confrontation, from the sheer ugliness of what my mother had tried to do, and what I'd been forced to do in response. There was a definite shadow cast, but it was a shadow we had fought back, a shadow that no longer had the power to ruin our light. My father was confused and worried when he realized Mom had left. I spoke to him briefly, simply saying there had been a disagreement and Mom had needed some space. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the whole truth, not then, not on my wedding day. That was a conversation for another time, a much more difficult one. Her absence, though, was noticeable in a good way. The air felt clearer. I could laugh without looking over my shoulder. I could enjoy my conversations with guests, dance with my husband, and truly enjoy the moments of joy without that constant dread of her impending attack. Mark was by my side, a constant source of strength and love. Our friends and his family were wonderful, showering us with affection. The real turning of the tables wasn't just about silencing her threat. It was about reclaiming my day, my happiness, my own power. It was about realizing that I didn't have to be a victim of her manipulations anymore. Like some of the research I'd read suggested, standing your ground as an adult making your own decisions is so important, even if it's painful. I had set a boundary, a very clear one, and for the first time, I felt like she might actually respect it, not out of love or understanding, but out of self-preservation. The immediate result was that the wedding went on, and it was, against all odds, a beautiful and happy occasion. The joy was perhaps a little more hard-won, a little more bittersweet because of what we'd overcome, but it was genuine. The short-term impact on our family dynamic was, of course, huge. The days and weeks that followed were filled with this strange quiet from my mother's side. No angry phone calls, no manipulative texts, just silence. It was an uneasy peace, but it was peace nonetheless. My relationship with my father became strained for a while as he tried to understand what had happened, caught in the middle. But Mark and I faced it together, as a team. My ace remained securely mine, a deterrent I hoped I'd never have to fully use, but a necessary shield. The power had shifted, and that was undeniable. The blackmail was over. This was, without a doubt, one of the toughest things I've ever been through, and it happened on a day that was supposed to be all about joy. I know family dynamics can be incredibly tricky, and weddings often bring all that stuff to the surface. If you've ever dealt with family drama, emotional manipulation, or had to make a really hard stand for your own happiness, I genuinely love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone can make such a difference. And if you found this story compelling, or if you want to hear more about navigating life's unexpected challenges, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world. It's been a while since that wedding day. Mark and I are incredibly happy. Our marriage, basically forged in fire, is stronger than I could have ever imagined. He saw me at my most vulnerable, faced down a huge threat to our future right alongside me, and loved me through it all. That kind of loyalty is a foundation you can really build a lifetime on. My relationship with my mother is different. It's distant. After a long period of silence, she did eventually offer this stilted, uncomfortable apology to Mark, more out of necessity than genuine remorse, I think. We see her sometimes at big family gatherings, but the closeness, the trust one once naively had, is gone. Maybe forever. And that's a sadness I carry. But it's also a boundary I have to maintain. I learned that day that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for a messed up relationship, is to create space and demand respect. Like experts often say, it's so important to hold your ground once you've set boundaries, and not back down when you're tested. I no longer live in fear of her judgment or her attempts to control me. The ace I held that day wasn't just about financial documents or old letters. It was the realization of my own strength and my right to my own life. The act of standing up to her, of refusing to let her blackmail dictate my future, was incredibly empowering. I learned that I am way more resilient than I ever thought possible. That day forced me to face a painful truth, that the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally can sometimes be the source of your deepest pain. But it also taught me that you don't have to just accept that pain. You have the power to change the story, to protect your peace, and to choose your own happiness. It wasn't just about turning the tables on my mom. It was about turning a page in my own life, stepping into a future where I define my worth and my choices. It was a hard lesson, learned on the hardest of days, but it was a lesson that ultimately set me free. And sometimes, freedom is the most beautiful beginning of all. What you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.